are the SnickleFritz Spelunker for episode number 14. Holy fuck, we've done 14 of these already. We do only have 10 subscribers on this channel though, which is sad as piss. Just tell your friends to subscribe to my channel. We are gonna get going right away here, so let's get on with the show.
Ba-ba-ba-dee-ba-ba-do, nature.
This is some good. Fuck. This is some good shit right here, I tell you. I am oh shit, oh fuck, oh yeah, oh titty fuck, oh shit, I almost fell off again.
Welcome aboard this salvage ship with a spaced out captain driving it. One of the biggest nerds around. Let's end this song with laser sounds.
Well, hello. I am Kurt, the captain and sole crew of the salvage ship SnickleFritz. This is the first of several transmissions about sci-fi, fiction, comic books, pretty much anything that I find interesting or cool. The first topic, our first episode, is going to be about zombies. Given that there's a fair bit of zombie-related content on the rest of this channel, I figured it was a pretty appropriate first topic to cover. So, find yourself a comfortable chair, buckle up, and let's see what we can dig up about zombies.
Eek! Zombies!
Alright, now, nowadays, most of the time when you think about zombies, you're probably going to think about TV shows like The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, The World Beyond the Walking Dead, and movies like Resident Evil or 28 Days Later. But it actually goes back way further than that. The original zombies appear in Haiti folklore and superstition and are usually created with evil magic, rather than a virus like most of today's. And that was really all there was to say about zombies for a long time, until in 1968, director George Romero released the movie Night of the Living Dead. It was a pretty low-budget movie, but it ended up spawning a whole new genre of horror movies, and it's got surprising rewatch value even now. I watched it just a couple days ago, and the scene where the couple escapes and then gets exploded in the truck and eaten by the zombies is still surprisingly visceral when they're like pulling the meat off the bones. If you haven't seen it before, go back, watch it. It's where this whole thing started. Stop motion theater.
Wolverine versus
Hulk.
Oh, what the fuck? Hey, Bob, I'm done with you.
Shiver me.
Hey, welcome back for transmission 1.2 topic, zombies. Last episode, we got through the basic origins of zombies. They come from Haiti folklore. And on to their next big move, which was in the George Romero movies, the Night of the Dead, the Land of the Dead, and so on. This episode, we are going to touch, in my usual brief manner, the 70s and 80s for zombies. So, As last time, find a good chair, buckle up, and we'll see what we can dig up about zombies. But how about a little change of setting here? My room has a better TV.
Completely different technology than Star Trek. Not the same at all. Let's see what the 70s and 80s had in store for the zombies. I hit the autopilot before I used the transmat, right? Space is pretty big. I'm probably okay for a few minutes. A quick search of the interwebs shows that George Romero kept making movies, zombie movies in particular, and a lot of them were pretty good. He even made a remake of his original Night of the Living Dead in 2012 that wasn't that bad. But unfortunately, that same internet search also pulls up that there were some real stinkers and just genuine dog turd movies made through the 70s and 80s that were just terrible. The movies weren't the only place you could find zombies in the 70s and 80s, though, and with the creation of D&D by Mr. Gary Gygax, zombies started to show up there too, though they were more of the evil magic variety as opposed to the radiation or virus-caused zombies in the movies. These ones were usually created by an evil necromancer or sorcerer. And that was about it. Zombies kept appearing in movies and in comic books and stuff like that, but they weren't really in the forefront of pop culture so much until the early 2000s. I stole your meme! Hey, remember how I thought I turned the autopilot on before I transmatted to my room to do that video? I didn't. I ended up plowing the SnickleFritz through the orbiting ringlets of a small gas giant. And it's just fucked now. I'm pretty sure I lost the internal cameras on impact, but when the alarms went off, I didn't panic. I just maintained composure and dealt with the situation. You kind of need to be like that to run these outer sectors. You can't let a little mishap freak you out. You just gotta be a professional about things, deal with your shit, and move on with your day. Exactly. Anyways, back to the zombies. The 2000s saw a bit of a resurgence in the genre, and there's a few gems like Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland, and 28 Days Later that I definitely recommend. Dawn of the Dead, Planet Terror, the Resident Evil franchise. The 2000s churned out a buttload of zombie movies. This probably says something super cool about the collective unconscious of the decade, but let's not look too deeply into that. This is also the decade Walking Dead became a huge hit on TV until we all got bored and stopped watching. Starting as a comic book, it eventually made its way to TV and even spun off a couple series, though if I'm being honest, after getting bored around the appearance of Negan, I've only watched the first couple episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. I'll get to them, eventually. And that's about where my viewing ends, honestly. Meanwhile, zombies were all over other media, like comics and in novels. The internet is just rotten with fanfic about the dead, and YouTube has a bazillion little amateur movies that can take you down a rabbit hole of vastly disparate quality. There's some full-on terrible shit, and I'm as guilty as anyone, but some really good stuff, too. Poseidon's Kiss! Wink! Cool stuff! Slick stuff! Neat stuff! Yeah.
I'm telling you some shit about Wolverine, yeah.
Wolverine timeline, 1951 to 1990.
All right, in 1950, Logan joins the CIA and Team X is formed. He becomes more aggressive post-memory implants from Cyborg. In 1953 USA, on a Romulus mission, he manipulates a young nuke and kills his father. In San Francisco, he unites the Chinatown gangs but refuses the Black Dragon position. He meets Master Po and allies closer with Landau, Luckman, and Lake. In 1963 Cuba, Silver Fox turns out to be a Hydra agent and betrays Team X. In USA, Xavier opens his mutant school. In 1966 Vietnam, with an LMD of Nick Fury, Logan goes up against Sim soldiers. In 1968 USA, Logan is ordered to report in, but is shot with carbonadium bullets to test their effects on his healing factor. He regains his true memories for the first time in years. In Vietnam, as a Soviet advisor under Romulus, he tortures pre-nuke. In Russia, on the Tyuratam mission, which was a fail, Victor Creed realizes that Logan's memories are back. In Germany, Berlin, he and Victor Creed are rescued by Nord, also known as Maverick, another member of Team X. Logan encounters Omega Red on a failed mission to obtain the carbonadium synthesizer, and later quits Team X, joining Department K. In India, as Agent 10 or Agent X, he is captured by Baron Strucker of Hydra, but rescued by the Parkers, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who were actually Spider-Man's parents. In 1971, Logan goes to Vietnam. In 1972, his altered memories cause him to spare a mark on a mission, which results in the death of Victor Creed's mom. Team X disbands about this time, and Logan joins Department H of Canada, where he roasts a terrorist cell on one of his missions. He meets Carol Danvers with Nick Fury, goes up against Hydra. In Canada, with Carol Danvers, he infiltrates the Canadian Ministry of Defense and discovers the mutant agenda with his name on it. In New York City, Logan prevents an assassination and learns of the Hellfire Club mutants. He infiltrates the club and encounters Victor Creed, who reveals their plans for world domination and that Logan himself is a mutant. Logan defeats Creed using a sword, but his reputation is ruined after he talks about the mutant agenda, so he goes to the Yukon, experiencing a period of depression and drugs. He is fired by Department K after a drunk shooting range incident. In Russia, he meets Ben Grimm, later the Thing of Fantastic Four, with Carol Danvers on a reconnaissance mission. In Canada, with Carol Danvers, he goes up against Victor Creed again. In Russia, with Agent Rossi, he helps rescue Danvers from a Russian prison. In Canada, he recovers stolen Hudson armor prototypes. In Africa, he goes up in strikes against 3 African leaders. In 1974, he is kidnapped by the Weapon X project and subjected to the adamantium bonding process. He later escapes the facility with the secret help of the Winter Soldier and goes feral again. Logan is returned to civilization by James and Heather Hudson, who encounter him while on a honeymoon hunting trip. He is treated with medications and psychotherapy by Department H and eventually becomes an agent again. His memories yet to return, he encounters Carol Danvers, Black Widow, and Nick Fury, going up against Victor Creed and Hydra agents while trying to find clues about his forgotten past. He participates in espionage missions for Department H to Siberia and the Pacific Rim, among other places, and gains the rank of captain in the Canadian military. At this time, Romulus reinitiates contact with Logan to do secret missions. Alpha Flight forms about this time, post the appearance of Fantastic Four, superhero teams becoming a thing around this time. In Madripoor, with Seraph and Viper, he fights Sabretooth again. In the fight, Seraph dies, but extorts a promise of marriage to Viper from Logan. Not really sure what her motivations were there. At this time, he meets Cable and helps him capture the villain Cray. In Canada, he foils a nuclear threat, but in the process, several members of Alpha Flight die and the team is reorganized. In Russia, with Nick Fury, he goes on a mission. In Japan, he has a falling out with Ogun, his former samurai master. He has become a dark sorcerer and wants to take over Logan's body. Logan vows never to return to Japan. In Canada, he is kidnapped by the leader a Hulk villain, as well as Hercules and the deviant Carcass, but the three of them manage to escape. And then he is sent up against the Hulk in Canada. This is his first appearance in the comics, and this is what I'm going to call 1990. And that's where we're going to wrap it up for now. Tell you some more shit about Wolverine next episode.
Stat block reading, cha-cha-cha! Stat block reading, cha-cha-cha!
Carl Crusher Creel, a.k.a. The Absorbing Man. This former New York City boxer turned criminal was empowered by the Asgardian mischief god Loki as a pawn against his brother Thor. 6'4", 270 pounds, blue eyes, no hair. The Absorbing Man can absorb the properties of anything with which he or his ball and chain come into contact. This power extends to living things, inanimate objects, and forms of energy. He is not limited to one property of an item, but can become changed into many different substances. When absorbing a city building, his form can simultaneously include wood, cement, glass, metal, and even flesh. When he absorbs the properties of materials, his body and his ball and chain become composed of the material he is absorbing. In addition, he can absorb specific properties relating to the form and/or mass of the object he is absorbing, such as absorbing the height of a building or the spikes of a mace. The Absorbing Man initially found it difficult to control his form when he transformed into liquid materials, on occasion becoming mentally unhinged and delusional, although this became less of a problem with practice. If his body is broken into pieces while he is in an altered state, the Absorbing Man can reassemble himself. As his powers are magical in nature, his body can function irregardless of what material it is composed. Ordinary metals he has been transformed into include steel, stone, wood, diamond, and glass. More unusual materials have included lightning, water, fire, snow, smoke, helium, light, cosmic energy, and silk. His most powerful transformations have been into energy states, such as cosmic, nuclear, thermal, or light. He has transformed into adamantium, Uru from Thor's hammer, and the unique metal of Captain America's shield. He has also absorbed the strength and powers of individual beings, including the Sentry, the Hulk, Odin, and others. Though he does not inherently possess superhuman strength or energy powers, he can gain virtually unlimited power depending on the properties of the material he has adapted. There are unrevealed limits to the amount of power the Absorbing Man can quickly absorb, as he has on occasion met defeat by rapidly absorbing excessive amounts of energy or absorbing energies that disrupted the powers he already had. For a brief period of time, the Absorbing Man developed the ability to take over people's minds, even across vast distances. Aside from his superhuman powers, Absorbing Man is also adept at boxing, street fighting techniques, and burglary strategies.
Guess that injury! One more time!
Greetings and salutations, what's your boggle? If you watched the last episode, you know that I had a pretty bumpy ride to the closest space station. It was just a total write-off. As you can see, I ended up trading for some new wheels. Hopefully I have better luck with this one. I will definitely be making sure that I turn on the autopilot before I bugger off to go make a stupid video about zombies. So, thanks for coming back for this installment. This will be the last one. And basically, I'll just be going through the different zombies that we've introduced so far, and just kind of compare them, their strengths, their weaknesses, and just how they stack up against each other. So, let's dig up a little bit more about zombies.
Alrighty then. Well, over the last few episodes, we have gone through the basic history of zombies, and a couple different kinds have popped up. The first one that popped up was the original one, the one that came from Haiti folklore that was usually created by an evil necromancer, witch doctor, bad magic guy. And that was the only kind that there was for quite a while until 1968 with Romero's series of Living Dead movies. And that introduced a completely different kind of zombie. Romero's zombies were a bit different from the traditional kind in that it wasn't magic that reanimated them. It hinted heavily that it was the radiation from a passing satellite that had brought in all the dead back to life. And this was anybody that just died normally, in addition to anybody that was bitten or scratched by these zombies. It was a whole new kind of zombie, and as I said previously, it kind of gave rise to a whole new genre of horror movie. Next up was the Runner, or the Living Infected. This is a newer kind of zombie that started popping up in the 2000s with movies like 28 Days Later, and to a lesser extent, the Resident Evil series. The key difference with these zombies is that they aren't actually dead. They're just really sick people that have gone crazy and turn into reptile brain cannibal things. It was as we started to move away from the Romero era and into these modern movies that we started to get away from things like magic and radiation causing the zombies. Now it was usually a weird mutation or a virus, usually, like with Resident Evil, created by an evil corporation. A fourth kind of zombie that I hadn't really mentioned yet is the weird mutant zombie. And that's usually in movies where they've taken the idea of zombie and given it a twist. These twists can take various form. In the Resident Evil series, Alice, the main character, was kind of a zombie herself. She was infected by the same virus that created the zombies, except she was basically a super person. When you look at a TV show like Z Nation, the main character, one of the characters, I suppose, had a form of zombieism that allowed him to control zombies and communicate with them. Alright, now with that little bit of review, we can go into comparing them a little bit. The Haitian zombies, the original ones, they're created by magic, and they don't really have the same limitations as the later zombies do. Usually the more current zombies, you kill them by popping them in the head, or beheading them, or killing the brain in some way. The magical zombies didn't really have that limitation, and I mean, they were just as happy being a disembodied head or pair of eyeballs as anything else. The undeath kind of permeated their whole being. This also extends to like the RPG D&D games where you're fighting against zombies there. When there's zombies and monsters in that game, they're running by the rules of that game, but generally they don't have the same hit 'em in the head vulnerability that later movie zombies do. And speaking of that weakness, that's when we come to the next big ones, the Romero zombies. Romero zombies were created by some sort of weird radiation that reactivated the reptile part of these dead bodies' brains. And any body's brains, for that matter, even if you just died normally, you'd still wake up again as a zombie. These are the ones that introduced the weakness. You kill their brain, you kill the zombie. These ones in particular, I remember in the first movie, didn't really like fire either. Whereas the Haitian zombies were essentially living robots, slave labor, pretty much. and could do the basic working behaviors that you needed out of forced labor. The Romero zombies had only the most basic of motor functions, usually. They could swing a rock to break a window, or there was a little girl that stabbed her mom with a gardening trowel. There was little stuff like that. And then, of course, there was the later zombie who had very basic language skills and managed to fire a gun. But usually they were a lot dumber and not really as manually dexterous as the first ones. Next up are the runners, or the living infected, and these ones are even more dumbed down than the Romero ones. They have only the most basic of animal instincts, the need to feed. They do, however, possess the coordination required to run, and they do. That was their big thing, that, oh my god, zombies run now! The big weakness that they have going for them is most of them aren't actually dead. Some of them, like in 28 Days Later, are just sick people. Other living infected types, like in the Resident Evil series, seem to try to do their best to give it a scientific explanation for the undeath. And it's this weird mutant cell activity that basically just reanimates dead cells. I'm not entirely sure if they all have the same weakness as Romero zombies with the brain being killed, but I think for the most part that's the case. These are the ones that also give rise to the mutant-type zombies. And finally, we have the living infected mutant-type zombies. These ones are wild cards. Their abilities vary widely, as do their physical forms. Some of them are reduced to weird monsters like the Lickers and the other monstrosities of Resident Evil. To wrap this all up, because this video is getting way too long, I personally would have to say that the newer monster type are probably the most powerful out of any of these. It's a toss-up between those and magic, just because it's magic. It's unpredictable. You really can't set particular parameters, because there aren't any. They don't obey any natural laws. It's kind of the whole idea. The Romero type are probably the weakest and easiest to deal with and kill and outrun. And the basic living infected might have the limitation of not actually being dead, in which case they could just starve to death, meaning you might be able to just wait them out. As with anything, these are just my opinions. Everybody has one. They're just like buttholes. Some are full of shit.
Say hello to my little friend. Wow, wow.
I'm super ethereal.
So yesterday didn't go as planned. Scratch I got didn't stop bleeding at all last night. Woke up to a mess this morning. Not feeling too great. Anyway, yeah.
Hey man, it's not sounding good about that scratch, but a scratch isn't always a death sentence. If you can hit up a pharmacy, if you can raid somebody's medicine cabinet, find their rubbing alcohol, their iodine, antibiotics, whatever, use it all. I've seen people bounce back before. I mean, we know it doesn't happen much, but it happens. I hope everybody had an alright weekend, such as it is. It's been pretty cool to see other people out there writing up like what's going on in their lives. Some of them, honestly, it's like I wish I was closer, but I mean, hopefully you guys can get out of the situations you find yourselves in. I really feel for the women trying to get kids through this. I mean, it's hard enough getting through it myself, to be dragging a kid along. It's got to be crazy. Buddy with the scratches, man, be careful with that. I don't like that you're not feeling good. That's not a great sign, honestly. I mean, keep it disinfected, man. I hope you can shake it off. It's not unheard of.
I hope it turns out better than I'm sure we both think it's gonna. Anyways, I hope you all keeping in touch, keep making your videos. I want to see more videos. The write-ups are cool. I like writing too. I hope you guys got something out of my little write-up. What little I know about what the fuck's going on with these zombies, these fucking dead people that are walking around trying to eat us. I hope somebody got something out of that. Keep sending videos. I want to keep seeing them. It feels a little bit less like it's me against the world when I see other people out there. Today I'm going to be making a trip into town. I'll bring my phone with me, make some videos. If I post them, I lived. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Just walking into town, and it's kind of convenient. There is a campground and what used to be a fairly well-maintained walking trail with, even little bridges over the ravines and shit so you don't get your feet wet. And I like to use it just to walk out to the gravel road that'll take me into town. It's just kind of a quick little shortcut between the wrecking yard I have my RV at and town. Just kind of quickly cut across a couple miles. Saves me a little bit of travel time for sure. Scenery doesn't hurt either, even in later part of the year. There is a decent sized lake that I've actually managed to fish quite a few meals out of over the summer. Pretty good source of food if you can handle the fishing rod. The one thing that I will say, I've been walking here for a bit and I keep seeing those. Keep seeing coyote poops. And normally that wouldn't really be a problem, or at least it wouldn't have been way back when, but nowadays when you have a virus that turns people into monsters and whatnot, and it can affect animals too. I mean, it affects dogs, it affects coyotes just as easy. And, that'll make them a lot more aggressive than normal, and they're more liable to attack, say, lonesome old me on my walk into town. There's also been a couple torn up, what's left of probably, I think, seagulls. Could be grouse. There's a little bit of both around here. So, I mean, that doesn't really mean anything other than the fact that they're here and they spend a bit of time hunting and eating around here. And I kind of need to watch myself. Maybe a little bit more than I usually have been down this trail. Almost a false sense of security when you're walking out in the middle of nowhere like this. Generally speaking, the towns, the cities and shit, if you stay away from where people are, you're staying away from where zombies are, right? But here we are in October, and there seems to be an unusual amount of predator activity, and you'd see they're just leaving them right out on the trail for me. Usually they like to drag them out into the bushes. Suppose I could talk a little bit about the first time I saw a zombie. In person. You see, we've been watching this shit on the fucking news for months. A global pandemic, even something like the zombie virus that has a crazy infectious rate, like way higher. And no disease is 100%. I'm sure there's some people that are immune to this virus, fucking somehow, but I don't know, man. Haven't run into anybody yet. But anyways, it had been like a few months, and I mean, it was just like the whole COVID thing. Everybody was panicking right at first, and then it was like, okay, well, I don't actually know anybody I know that is dying from this fucking disease. Maybe it's just bullshit, and then you get all the conspiracy nuts working up their fucking nonsense. And you really you almost kind of, fuck it, you start not really paying attention anymore. And then it's at your town. And, okay. There was a car accident outside of the place. I was staying at my parents'. There was a car accident out, and they went out to see what was going on. And I guess it was somebody turning. There's somebody, they were taking their kid to the fucking hospital, and they get into an accident because the kid's freaking out in the back, as they do toward the end. She turns back to handle the kid, and she fucking T-bones somebody at the intersection out front. So my parents run out to help, and I mean, they're not even thinking. They go to grab the kid, and they both get nipped. Even then, you don't really, I mean, you know, it's the same as every other fucking horrible thing in your life. You think it happens to everybody else but you, right? My girlfriend at the time and I, we stayed with them as long as we could. I'll probably talk about it later, but in any case, that's the first time I saw a zombie in person. It's my own fucking parents. You worry? I don't know if you can see it very well. I'm kind of shitty at aiming the camera. But there's smoke behind me. Generally speaking, I mean, there's fires that happen. They just left all the utilities on and shit like that, so I mean, fires happen. Pipes crack because the heat doesn't kick in because they died before they turned the furnace on. Water main breaks. Gas leaks. Shit like that. Generally speaking, fires don't happen unless somebody starts them. And if somebody's still alive now and they're still fucking starting fires, well, they're obviously not too worried about being found. Which to me kind of means I need to start worrying about being found. I said before, I mean, zombies are fucking dangerous. Awesome, more coyote shit. Zombies are fucking dangerous. But they're generally good if you don't freeze to death over the winter. People don't freeze to death over the winter. Or at least they don't freeze solid the way fucking zombies do. And they want your shit. I had to respot 4 fucking times last winter because I kept getting found out and chased out, beat up. I have to watch myself, make sure nobody's watching me. I don't even know. I don't think they can see me from across the lake, but fuck, I don't know. Maybe I should start taking just the road into town instead of this trail. Worries and worries. If I do have to not start using this trail anymore, I don't know if you can see on the bush behind me, but there's a lot of natural Saskatoon berries and wild raspberries, wild strawberries, stuff that I can forage for along this trail too. It's getting less so at this time of year, obviously, but it's definitely been a food source this year. Well, check that shit out. There's a truck over there that was not here the last time I walked this trail. This and the smoke kind of makes a guy worry. Gonna go check that out. Here we go. I haven't seen anybody around. Lost. No keys under the seat. The sun visor though. Oh, fuck. Banged my fucking head on the inside of the door. That's a good start to my day. Okay. This thing wasn't here when I walked through the other day. It hasn't been getting cold enough that it should kill the battery. Let's see if this fucker starts. Well, I'm gonna have to ditch this vehicle. I almost put my seatbelt on. I'm gonna have to ditch this vehicle outside of town because, you know, they like vehicles. They're noisy and they stink. I just got myself a lift into town. And that's a full tank. Cool.